boys and girls, it's time to nerd fight!
Step into the ring, it's time to brawl. Nerd fights, baby, we're geeking for all. Marvel, DC, Trek, and more.
Fire.
Pop culture battles, settle the score. Nerd fights, let's get loud. Nerd fights, yeah, for the geeky crowd. Nerd fights, hey, it's time to throw down. Bring your fandom, it's the hottest showdown. Who's got the takes? Who's got the heat? Mr. Know-It-All and Salty can't be beat.
That means only one thing. It's time to fight.
Beat drops out with the final shot.
Nerd fights.
Let's fight!
And we are live,
All right.
as opposed to dead. Unfortunately, Mr. Know-It-All, being the jerk that he is, did not show up when he was supposed to. So, but that's okay because we have the far superior Mr. Gonzo here.
I don't know about superior. Maybe like Mr. Know-It-All light.
Well, you're better looking anyway.
Yeah, I'm see now. That I will not argue with.
Yeah. Well, guys with beards are naturally better looking than guys without beards.
That's true. Don't do that because he'll grow one. He can grow one by tomorrow. I can tell you that for a fact.
Well, then he'll just be the exception.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, damn.
So, today, we were supposed to do the show yesterday, but Mr. Know-It-All had a family emergency, and so we rescheduled it for today. And all kidding aside, we love Mr. Know-It-All, but his situation, while don't worry, it's not like life or death or anything like that, but he hasn't gotten it completely resolved yet, so he couldn't make it today as we had originally planned. But me and Gonzo wanted to talk about Daredevil before we forgot what happened in the show.
Exactly, because it's fastly fading away. It's just rapidly fading away from my brain right now.
Yeah. So now when you say that, so you say it's rapidly fading from your brain. Are you saying you're not that interested, or you're just like tired?
I'm just tired.
Okay. I'm just making sure you don't think it's.
I'm so interested because when it comes back on again, I'm watching it.
Okay. So you are enjoying the show.
I am enjoying the show.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Because, I thought this episode was good.
I thought, okay, so if you want me to talk about the last show, yes. Last show was pretty good.
It was the Trial of White Tiger.
The Trial of White Tiger, it was pretty good when it comes to that. Me being Puerto Rican, I didn't care too much about the cookie thing. I love the cookie, don't get me wrong. And
so you thought the frog thing was stupid, huh?
No. At the end of it, at the end of the closing credits, I thought it was a very nice touch when they were doing the cookie sound.
Well, I will say I've never heard of a cookie before.
It's like they're acting like the Puerto Ricans like this newfound, culture, and it's like, man, I've heard this all my life.
But that's because you're Puerto Rican.
But exactly, this is coming from a Puerto Rican. This is coming from a Puerto Rican. It's like, bro, talk to me about White Tiger. I know that he's Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
from the Bronx, where I'm from. Or I don't know if he's from the Bronx, but I'm from the Bronx. He's from New York, and so I'm just like, it was good. I'm not gonna say it was.
But think about it this way. Okay, so
but it was
you remember they had Colin Farrell play Bullseye in the Ben Affleck movie?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the big problems I had with that, being Irish myself, is that he was not constantly drinking. So they got the Bullseye thing down, but they didn't cover the Irish part.
The Irish part.
Yeah, so you're saying this is kind of
in this show, they didn't get the White Tiger part, but they got the Puerto Rican part down.
Yeah, so it's kind of the opposite problem.
Yes, exactly.
There
wasn't
Stanley
a balance.
says never heard the frog thing. Yeah, if you go back and watch, because I didn't catch it the first time, because usually when the credits start, I just turn it off. But when the credits play, instead of music, they actually play the sound of that frog. And I'll be honest, I'm not Puerto Rican, so I've never heard of a cokie before. And
I'm very proud of being Puerto Rican. Don't get me wrong, but still.
Well, you sound like you kind of resent it now. But
I just don't. It just didn't. We didn't need that. I didn't need a freaking hero or a white savior for that. It was
not
like
a white savior.
cool.
He'd be a brown savior.
No, you know what I mean. I'm using that I'm using that as a analogy, not directly.
Right. But you see, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, the comic book character was Puerto Rican,
and
it was a part of his character.
Yes,
and so they did bring that into this.
Yes.
It's not, and so I would have a big problem with it if, let's say, they were basing it on a character who was not Puerto Rican.
Yes,
and
see, I don't have any problem with the character at all.
Right.
No, it was just a little naggy thing in the back of my head.
Right. But
so much of it was kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, I did like the trial overall. I thought it was a good TV trial.
Yes, I thought the trial was good. In fact, I'm sorry. I'm just, you know what? Go ahead. I just keep cutting you off.
No. Go ahead. Whatever you're saying.
I was remembering about when Mr. Know-It-All was talking about how She-Hulk did not do this.
Right. Didn't do trials.
Didn't do trials, even though she was the freaking lawyer.
Right.
And so when I was watching this, I was like, yes, this is what they should have been doing. This is great right here.
Well, but you see, I can kind of sort of understand, like, when it comes to She-Hulk, there's the it's a different genre because She-Hulk She-Hulk was a comedy.
You can make a comedy like.
Well, I know you can, but I think the problem was that they were trying to do more comedy than lawyer, and I don't think they found a good balance.
We'll get to that, Stanley.
Yeah. However, I do think that that with the Daredevil Born Again, to me, it's so far I'm liking it because Matt Murdock is Matt Murdock first.
Yes.
And Daredevil is something he does, but it's all an extension of the character of Matt Murdock, and I think that they're doing that character justice based on what we saw in the previous series. Now, Stanley brings up an interesting question, and this is something that I've been giving some thought to because he actually asked it on my video that I put up about it. So, massive spoiler warning. If you have not seen the episode, shut it off right now because there's a spoiler right at the end of this episode that you do not want to know before you see it. Would you agree with that, at least? What happened? The very last thing that happens?
Yeah, the very last thing, do not. Yeah, just.
So if you don't know about it, put us on mute now and go watch it.
Yeah, just do something like that.
So, you've been warned, so I don't want to hear any other crap from you guys. So, all right. So the very last thing that happens is, of course, White Tiger dons the White Tiger mask to go fight crime. And the funny thing is, we have not yet seen White Tiger really do his thing. We don't even know what the amulet is capable of or anything.
Exactly.
And the first thing that happens is he gets shot in the head and he's dead. And you're like, holy crap. And then out of the shadows comes the person with the Punisher shirt on. And so the assumption, and this is what Stan Lee was asking, and I'm curious to see what you think, was that actually Punisher, or was it like one of these cops that have the Punisher tattoo?
Well, thinking about it like that, you can easily say it might be one of those cops with the Punisher tattoos because they allude to those tattoos throughout the episodes.
Right.
And so they know we're all excited to see the Punisher and trying to see when he's coming in.
Right.
But if he's coming in like that, that was just, it blew your mind away.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways.
It blew White Tiger's mind away, at least.
Well, I see it. There's a couple of ways this could go down. One is that, because we know Punisher is going to be in the show. I mean, we've seen John Barenthal in the trailers. So
we got all excited about that.
Yeah. So I think it could be one of two things. Number one, it was a cop dressed as Punisher, framing Punisher basically, and John Barenthal's character comes out of hiding because he's pissed off that someone's taking his name and offing basically costume vigilantes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's plot number one that I could see them doing. Plot number two that I could see them doing is that it actually is Punisher. And the reason he's doing it, remember, Punisher is a strict law and order kind of guy, right?
Mhm.
Even though he's a vigilante and he breaks the law, he is doing so only to people that he personally sees as people that are breaking the law.
Right.
And
White
what
Tiger was proven not to have broken the law.
But no, that's not true because remember, Fisk has made being a vigilante illegal. And so,
But
and notice
no,
what happened. Wait, what do we see right before White Tiger is offed? Is Fisk saying that the rule of law must, must win? And it's like, so is Punisher Fisk's basically, enforcer?
see, the thing with that is that there is already a rule of law, though. And then if the rule of law doesn't work, he goes out and deals it out himself.
Right.
Like if an actual murderer who did murder someone got acquitted for murdering, and especially in a malicious and vengeful or visceral way, he's gonna go kill that dude regardless of what the law made him go free for. So why
But
would But hold on. But if Kingpin said, "Oh, this is the rule of law," and he's gonna kill him just because it's the rule of law, that's not gonna work.
Well, but it's because keep in mind, White Tiger, like it, and trying to see it from Kingpin's perspective here, or Fisk, I should say, because
Well, okay,
he's
yes,
really not Kingpin right now.
he's not Kingpin anymore.
Right.
That life was left behind.
I need sugar.
I need sugar. I need sugar.
So, but Fisk, it does seem like he's genuinely trying to go straight. Although the weird thing is, we've seen his bloody knuckles twice now because they showed him again in
You
this episode.
think he's trying to go straight for real?
I think at this point, I think okay, so there's two possibilities again. This, and I do like the fact that I'm not convinced either way because the show could go either way.
Okay, so I see that. Moral.
One could be that the reason his fists are bloody is because he's actually secretly going out doing nasty Kingpin stuff. The other is that out of frustration, he's punching walls or something. And the thing, because notice, we don't know what he did to make his knuckles bloody.
Exactly. We can only assume that he beat the crap out of Adam. That's what I think. He beat the crap out of Adam.
More Ozempic. I need
More.
Ozempic.
Yes.
I need more Ozempic.
He's on it too. You see how
Ozempic.
he's on it. You see he's on it because you see how little food is on his plate.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? With the like, I'm stuffed.
And yeah, and I do like.
Go ahead.
There was you go from Fisk's bloody knuckles to Matt Murdock's bloody knuckles.
Yes.
And that kind of implies that because the only reason you get bloody knuckles is by beating the crap out of somebody, because that's what Matt did. However, I'm still not convinced that Fisk, and I like the fact that Fisk could be genuinely trying to go straight, because that makes it, in my opinion, more interesting. Because
I'm just not convinced, though. He's not.
Well,
if that's the case, he's not being convincing.
But that's the idea. You should be wondering. You shouldn't. If it was completely obvious that Fisk is now like if you see him going, oh no, it would be wrong for us to eat animals.
See, if he said that though, right, I would even more know that he's not trying to be convincing. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just okay. I never really thought about it like that. That he's actually trying to do good.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
but he hasn't done anything though to Wouldn't they show some like scene or something where he does something for the community? Has he done anything like that? I don't
Well, he
remember.
fixed that
Fading.
sinkhole.
Yeah, yeah, the sinkhole.
Yeah. I
You there?
fixed the sinkhole. The only thing around here that does its own work is my god dang truck.
No.
And yes, Mr. Know-It-All couldn't make it today. So he was supposed, long story. Go rewind. I explained it all at the beginning.
Yeah, he's just not here tonight.
Yeah.
For
So,
tonight.
Unfortunately, it's just,
Tonight.
it's just me and this guy who
This
is
boring.
He's our substitute know-it-all that looks way better, but is, not quite as smart. But he looks way better.
Not as smart. I don't know it all.
Yeah, he's Mr. No's son.
I Mr. Knows enough.
you should change your name to Mr. Knows Enough. That's
Knows enough.
So yeah, I think that I like the fact that we're unsure about what Fisk's true motives are, because as some of these things that are going to come into play, like if Punisher is actually out there working for Fisk, then that he could be a duly deputized agent of the law. On the flip side, maybe
he doesn't really do contracts, though, does he?
Huh?
He doesn't really do contracts like that, does he?
No, but what if he's, it wouldn't. If he was actually deputized by the city, it wouldn't be contracts. It would be assignments.
Okay. I still won't give you that. I don't think that's it, but it is plausible.
Yeah, but we also don't even know if that was actually Punisher.
That's very true too. On top of that, we don't know that if it was Punisher.
Yeah,
because again,
they're one of those cops.
Yep.
Because
his skulls and everything like that throughout the whole episodes.
Yeah, and we've seen that tattoo a few times now. We've seen it on one cop's neck, on another cop's wrist, and so the question becomes: are these cops? Are they? Trying to think of the right term here. Are they basically trying to imitate Punisher? In that, like what we saw, keep in mind, what do we see the cops doing? They were beating the crap out of that one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so were they doing it in some kind of twisted sense of justice like Punisher did? Or is there something else behind it?
So they might be.
Might
be a sect. Go ahead.
I got to point this out. So it says Trek Reviewer mentioned this. So when I told my wife that you were on the show with us, and she's like, "Well, what's his name?" And I said, "Well, he goes by Gonzo." And so she said, without missing a beat, and some of you guys will get this, but most of you will not. But she said, without missing a beat, does he know that? Okay, then is he friends with Kermit Frog? Not Kermit the Frog, Kermit Frog.
Frog. Okay.
And the reason she said that, and the reason it's so funny, is that I do have a guy and he used to be here all the time. Now he pops in every now and then, but he goes by Kermit Frog.
Oh, no way.
So anyway.
Say, look, guys, I even got the nose.
Yeah. You didn't know that Gonzo is Puerto Rican, did you? Yeah, it's funny. You should have known all along because they did reveal he was an alien.
Yeah. Oh, geez, helpless Lord.
I'm just saying.
Maybe I'm like
facts
Dominican
are
side,
facts.
but not on the Puerto. No, facts are facts. No, Puerto Ricans are citizens, man. Come on, get that right.
Punisher and Daredevil's last encounter. I'm trying to remember the last time they saw each other. I mean,
that was so many years ago for me. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and rewatch it. Which
that would
I
be
may do after this is over.
I was going to be a nice homework piece to do.
Yeah. All right. So now there's one other thing it's Daredevil adjacent, I guess you could say, and that is that a lot of the, for lack of a better term, channels that tend to lean negative towards Disney-related content out there, a lot of them are reporting that Daredevil's ratings are very low. and don't try to convince me that they're accurate or what. That's not the point of this. Okay. The point of it is, if they are correct, if the ratings are in fact low, but the show is obviously is good, does that mean there's really no saving Marvel at this point? Is it a ship that is too far gone to stop from sinking?
No, I have hope. I still have hope. They're gonna have to do a lot of cleaning up to do,
Right.
and I don't know if the normies will have that kind of patience. I
I don't
will.
think it's the normies that's the problem.
Well, I'm a fan, and I'm close to being tired of the whole damn thing. And so as I was looking at other articles and things before, where we're not really tired. So Disney tries to say that it was tired of being, the superhero fatigue,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
thought that's
think
a load of crap. That's
yeah, it's not superhero fatigue. It's like who said
it's
this?
crap
Somebody,
fatigue.
but it's bad writing fatigue.
Right.
It's just bad writing fatigue. It's DEI fatigue. It's just
Right.
everything other than the superhero. I mean, they're just not writing good content for these good superheroes.
Well, and I
So
do
I'm not
think like
superhero fatigued,
right.
but man, it's
But there were
taking a
some people that
toll.
were calling the new Captain America woke, which it's not. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's a good movie. Is it the
Right.
best Marvel movie ever made? No, but it's a pretty decent movie, and it's not like a woke-tastic adventure or anything. It's just
I have not seen the movie, so I don't feel
you
qualified
haven't
to give my
seen it,
opinion. Oh no, I hardly ever go to the movies.
dude. Come on, it's an
I watch.
MCU film.
I know, but see, again, that goes to that bad writing fatigue.
Well, I will say this: I don't think
Oh
that Captain
man,
America suffered from
Rose.
it's not crap like some of the stuff we've seen. This is definitely not like the Marvels or the Eternals or any of that. It feels like a Marvel movie.
Right.
So, oh, that's weird.
I
You
don't
kind
know
of
if I
froze.
froze on you or not. Yeah, I kind of froze. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on here.
At first, I thought you were having like a seizure or something, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, maybe if I mean, do you mind if I leave and come back in or something? Or
You're
I don't
doing
know if
what
that's
now?
gonna work. If to just leave and come back in or hit
All right,
refresh
yeah.
or
Go ahead and
something.
try that. See if that fixes it.
All right. Ooh, wow, my mouse is not even working. So my whole computer
Oh, so
just
your
froze.
computer's frozen.
Yeah, that
Oh,
is something else.
So you see,
Oh,
somebody needs tech support. Somebody get Elon Musk over to Gonzo's house. Let's see. JP versus US was interesting. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. I genuinely don't know what you're talking about there. See, even many fans aren't excited enough to see things in cinema. Oh no, I get that, Stan. I do, but I'm hoping that here's the problem. I think Captain America: Brave New World was good. Thunderbolts, I have a feeling is probably going to be a step up from Captain America, and Fantastic Four. At least the initial trailer looks like it's going to be freaking awesome. And so and if all that pans out, I do see a thumb.
yep.
So what are you hiding what are you naked or
My
something?
horrendous background. Just give me a minute and I'll be right there.
All right. So if Fantastic Four is as good as it looks like it should be, then that's awesome and it would be great. Except that my concern is, even if Thunderbolts is great and Fantastic Four is great, if nobody goes to see it, it's not going to save the MCU. Even if they get 100% Rotten Tomatoes and everybody talks about it's the greatest movie ever made, but nobody goes to see it, then I think Marvel is cooked at that point.
I think so. I think that we're just gonna have to see and see how the rest of these turn out. I do know that if the fans hang out, it's gonna take about a year or two before things go back to not normal, but when things are starting to become a little bit better.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know if they can hang out that long.
Well, and next year we have two Russo brother films with Doomsday and Secret Wars.
That's next year, right?
Yeah, that's next year. And
They're gonna have to. Okay, so if they're gonna have to do a lot of changing up to whatever their original story was gonna be. Russo brothers, though, I mean,
they knocked
they're
it out of the
good.
park with Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
I mean, and they
So
also did Civil
so
War.
they're on the right track with that, at least with
Yeah.
them two on there.
And of course everybody's wondering because there hasn't been a lot of, we'll just say, buzzworthy news around Marvel these last couple of years. So the question would be, who all's going to be in these movies?
Hmm.
We know Robert Downey Jr. is going to be Doctor Doom, but he's obviously not going to be Iron Man. So I assume we can safely assume all the surviving Avengers are going to be there.
Yep.
But, and probably the Fantastic Four. But are we going to get, since it is a multiversal kind of thing, does that mean we're going to get characters like Deadpool and Wolverine and X-Men and stuff like that involved? Are we
Um.
are we going to get classic variants like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man or the Ewan Yeoff Mr. Fantastic, or however you say his name? It's funny because I love the idea of him reprising Mr. Fantastic. I just can't say his name. But if you look at him, I thought he was too young to play Mr. Fantastic when he was in the movies, but
Mhm.
now he looks exactly like Mr. Fantastic. Like if you've seen him recently, he he now
You're
looks
talking
like
about Pascal, right?
huh? No, not Pedro Pascal, the guy that played Mr.
Oh,
Fantastic in Rise of
in
the
which
Silver
one?
Surfer and the first.
Oh, yes,
His
yes.
name is like Ewan
I
Ewan.
can't. Yeah, I can't
It's
remember his
really
name.
hard to say. However you say his name, he
Now he
now
really looks
looks
like.
exactly like Mr. Fantastic.
I didn't have a problem with him being Mr. Fantastic in the beginning.
I did because I thought he was too young.
Well, yes, but as far as the character and the mannerisms go, I
No,
mean,
I didn't have a problem with his character. The only one whose character of the quartet, the only one whose character was off was Sue.
yes,
Jessica Alba
yeah,
was not Sue Storm. I'm
no, she
sorry.
was not. That
I'm
was
not,
for
and I'm not knocking Jessica Alba. I think she's a beautiful human being, but she is not Sue Storm.
no, she's not.
You know,
I mean, just don't
yeah.
don't piss on my head
Ariana
and say
Grande
it's
is
raining.
closer to Sue Storm than Jessica Alba is. Um, but so now this girl that, or I should say woman. I know I say girl because I'm old, but the
Yes.
person who is playing Sue in the new one, I haven't really seen in anything. So I'm going to go into it with an open mind. Same thing,
I'm
like
having
I've
issues
not
again.
seen the fourth season of Stranger Things. So the kid playing
Hmm.
Johnny, don't know anything about
Yep.
him. And you froze again.
Yes, I froze again. I don't understand what issues I am having today,
Why
but
don't
it
you? I would say this. Try this. So exit out, reboot, and then come back in.
that's what I'll do
All right.
if it'll allow me. All right, gentlemen. I will hit that escape button and let's
All
see
right.
what goes on here. Thank you.
So, but yeah. So first of all, I am not a racist, Stan. Um, and I can say that because well, I know some people say they have friends that are black, but I'm married into it, so I'm black by marriage. So, and of course, if you go by the liberal standards, if you're black, you can't be racist. And since I'm black by marriage, I can therefore not be racist. Yeah, I think that's how it works. Um, and of course, since I am a salt monster, my true form is right there. I am actually non-binary. So, yeah, suck on that. And if you don't like it, I will suck out all your salt. So you better like it. Man, that was actually pretty smart. But anyway, so yeah, and Laura Real says, didn't a lot of slave owners have kids with their slaves? That is true. However, they did not marry the slaves that they had kids with. So see, that's where I get the get out of jail free card on that one, Laura. Nice try though. I will give you credit there. You know, spoken like a true lawyer. But yeah, so I think that it is crazy that that Ewan, however you say his name, is not playing Mr. Fantastic. But I hope he plays a variant of Mr. Fantastic in Secret Wars. I would like to see some kind of Council of Reeds kind of thing and have him be the leader of said council. I think that would be really cool. And you know, Laura, you could always come on if you want. I could send you the link. I'm just saying. But yeah, my biggest fear though is that if Fantastic Four flops at the box office, regardless of how good it actually is, does that mean it's over for Marvel? You know, just like I don't know, and I would kind of say the same thing about Star Wars. You know that they put out you know when people were so angry over the Acolyte. So even if and granted, you guys know I'm not a big fan of Andor, but let's say Andor season 2 is freaking awesome sauce all the way, but nobody watches it, is it going to do any good? And ironically, that just means that as far as our franchise hopes, it's all going to fall on Strange New Worlds to keep something going. Which I know some of you guys hate on Strange New Worlds. I happen to not be one of those. I love Strange New Worlds. But yeah. And no, I do not think there will be an Alf crossover there, Stan. Can Doomsday revive them if Fantastic Four flops? That's see, I don't know because Doctor Doom is like the most iconic villain that Marvel has in their arsenal. And Doctor Doom, I mean, think about it. Darth Vader was based on Doctor Doom. A lot of people don't realize that, but yes, it is true. I see Mr. Gonzo is back. But Darth Vader was actually based on Doctor Doom. The whole man behind the mask kind of thing. And we never saw his face, at least not for the first 40, 50 years of the run of Fantastic Four. You never see Doctor Doom's face. Except for when his face is altered in some way to look quote unquote normal. Other than that, his face is like horrifically scarred, and you never see it as far as directly. Sometimes you see that other people see it and they look horrified by it. But Will Stan asked an interesting question while you were gone, Gonzo.
Okay, awesome.
Is if let's say Fantastic Four flops, right?
Yes.
Can Doomsday save the MCU off of a Fantastic Four flop?
Probably because I think Robert Downey Jr. won't let that happen. I mean, he'll probably screenwriting,
Yeah.
whatever you know, the director's doing. If he doesn't feel like it's going to be a good scene, I'm sure Robert Downey Jr. would just freaking.
Well, we know the Russo brothers can make a great movie.
Yes, on top of that, they can, and so that's why I have no issue with the Fantastic Four, or well, that's not what they're doing. They're doing, they're doing the Fantastic Four, where they've done so well before. I don't see why this wouldn't be
right.
This
and
wouldn't
Danny,
be
the
not just as good, but you know, I don't know. See, we're just so fatigued. We just don't have faith in it anymore. We just been
that's the problem. It's like, you know, was Deadpool and Wolverine just a one-off? is really, I think, what people are worried about.
Yeah.
Because prior to Deadpool and Wolverine, you have to go back a couple of years to find a decent Marvel movie.
Yes.
Anyway, but Danny, no, you've not been replaced twice over now because, Gonzo here is only on a temp job. So,
I'm just a guest on here, man.
yeah.
So
Although, he does have a beard. Danny has a beard,
Danny has
which automatically puts him a step above Mr. Know-It-All because bearded people are superior.
right.
That is genetically proven. But so unless you shaved again, Danny, you still have a step above Mr. Know-It-All.
It's all right,
And
Danny.
so yeah. So Stan also says if he thinks that Andor is going to get the same reception as Daredevil because same kind of problem. Like what he was talking about before is that Daredevil it may be well done, but the character of Daredevil really appeals to the fans more than to the general audience.
So it appealed to the fans as well back then too. I think that it just I'm always going back to they're just scared. They're just like, ugh, I'm tired. Is this maybe I'll watch it, maybe I won't watch it. It's just gonna be another woke TV show with bad writing and writers who've never read the comic book before. And they're like, I'm just done right now with this bad story crap. Maybe I'll watch it, maybe I won't. And so therefore the viewing is not there. I'll tell you this, when Daredevil first came out, I was so excited. I was elated and I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait until then. However, this time around, I'm like, they better not fuck this up. I am so tired. I'm ready for this to be crap, and I'm just tired of it. And so maybe that's what we're getting from everyone else.
Yeah. I
just don't mean to sound all like a damp, ugly, wet rag, but that's how I feel.
A damn ugly wet rag.
Yeah, just ugh.
Something be damp and wet at the same time.
I know. See, I was trying to emphasize. This is like the amplified version.
You're trying to emphasize the moisture aspect of the rag.
That's right.
And Trek Reviewer wants to know what would happen if you shot a pepper beam at the salt monster. Well, considering my wife is known as Pepper, it would be good.
Whoa, yes, it would.
Yeah.
I gotta go now.
It's funny because actually, if you see our cars, because we have two cars, right? The license plate on my car says Salty, and the license plate on her car says Pepper.
Okay.
So,
Salty and Pepper. Okay.
Which makes sense,
So you're a man, what a mighty good man you are? Is that what that is?
I am a mighty good man.
A mighty good man. Never mind. So with your thought, I never really heard your thought because of my technical difficulties, and I apologize for that. But what do you think it is with the low ratings?
If the low ratings are true, I think it's because, honestly, and I don't want to sound like a...
You don't want to sound like me.
I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. I don't want to be down on the fans because I do understand why people get frustrated by all the bad crap that's been produced by Lucasfilm and Marvel over the last couple of years. I get that. But what I get mad at is these various channels that take such pleasure in bashing on these guys. They do it with this gusto that's just like, yeah. And I think part of it is because some of these channels, some of them have gotten a pretty significant level of success off of doing this. And
because it was needed.
Well, but you see, I think that fair criticism is always needed. But I don't think
it was fair before, though.
Huh?
It was fair before.
Well, I think that, like, for example, when things like
It's the
Ghostbusters 3,
fans' fault. Sorry, go ahead.
it's the fans' fault. See, you see that's the problem. In a sense, yes,
No,
but
it's
not.
not.
But
Shut your pie hole. It's not the fans' fault. We're
no, no,
just
no.
here
I'd say
trying
it
to.
would be it if only if what I'm saying is if Marvel and Lucasfilm produce consistent good content and they're not getting the views, a lot of it is because you have people that are like, I'm not watching anything made by Disney.
You're right.
And that is the wrong attitude. I
I think
understand that Disney has put out some crap, but Disney has also put out some stuff that we really love.
like
And so I think that
like when? Since when?
huh?
Since when? I'm just. This is an actual good question. That I'm really
Deadpool and Wolverine.
okay. I'll give you that.
That was last year. Come on.
Only because they've been going through like what 5-6 years of those so-called websites bashing the shit out of them.
But, I'm just saying, Deadpool and Wolverine is a recent production. And
Okay.
I mean, and to their credit, they bashed Disney in that movie, and Disney let them do it.
It felt good when they did it
Yeah.
because it was true. It was freaking true. So it was
So
the truth. It was those radio podcast stations saying the same damn thing, and they made it sure that you guys it was heard. Now I can tell you this: with those, now they're grasping at straws because we've already beat the crap out of Disney for all their stupid stuff, and then
right,
they're still doing stupid stuff. But now when I watch those types of shows, they're not bashing. They're not bashing Daredevil. They're
right.
not bashing the character, who's playing the characters, or any like this most recent one. They didn't bash the show at all. They were bashing the company Disney. And pretty much telling Disney, "Hey man, it just might be too late because you screwed up so royally."
I hope it's not. I really do. So I understand why people are they're skeptical. I would say of anything that Marvel would put out, but I mean I would say this
They've
so
been
far,
traumatized.
huh?
They've been traumatized.
Yeah, well, I would say this: the trailers have not been lying about the content.
Right.
Like if you look at the Captain America trailers, that's the movie you get. If you look at the Daredevil trailers, that's the show we're getting. So
Yeah.
I think that, and so if that's true, then Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four look good to me. If it, so now Fantastic Four, I know they're holding their cards close to their, like still haven't seen Silver Surfer. We haven't seen a full-on shot of Galactus. We still don't know for sure who the mysterious character in the shadows was. But I'm still, from what I've seen of it, I'm looking forward to it. Now, I do want to correct something on this. So Danny says, why would you change your channels and kill your views? You go from thousands of subs to 22. Well, first of all, I don't know what you're smoking. Because first on Nerd Fights there's 65 subs, and that all Nerd Fights does is these live streams. And on Salty Plus, I just cracked 200. All right, and I've only been putting content up there for a few weeks now, so it's 200 and growing. And as far as having, thousands of subs, that's true. I had thousands of subs on the old channel, but a lot of them weren't showing up because they hated me because of kind of the stuff we're talking about, because I was unwilling to just hate on stuff because of it was produced by Disney. And a lot of people got.
But see, you know why though? Probably it's because I can't just hate on Disney because they're Disney. I'm hating because I can legitimately say that it's crap and go and say why it's crap,
Sure.
you know. But at the end of the day, it's crap. And I guess, other channels will just say that it's crap just because it's crap, just because they're getting the ratings. However, I mean, those shows would have never been created like that if they weren't crap anyways.
Oh, and
It was the fans' voice
you've
that
been
was like,
insulted though.
huh?
You've been insulted pretty hard.
Oh, have I been insulted?
Yeah,
Where have I
read
been
read that
insulted?
comment.
Trucker and Mr. Know-It-All.
He thinks you're Mr. Know-It-All.
I am not Mr. Know. Yes, I'm very insulted. I'm gonna just shut down the show. I'm leaving. So Mr. Know-It-All, again, for those of you who are just coming in, is just out tonight. That's all.
Yeah.
He's just out
Uh,
tonight. We'll see him again.
Laura says they
And
hated you
I'm
because you
just a
weren't willing to
guest.
hate on Kurtzman and Ben to the new nerd, whatever his name is. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there was what really started the ball rolling downhill was when I admitted that I didn't think Captain Marvel was the worst movie ever made. I didn't think it was great. I gave it a score of 6 out of 10, and keep in mind because
And they jumped on you because you said it wasn't the worst movie ever made. It
yes, because remember when Captain Marvel came out,
was terrible.
the popular thing to say was how it was absolute, it was complete garbage from start to finish. There was nothing redeemable about it. It was the worst movie ever, blah, blah, blah. However, now I'm the first to say that the weakest part of that movie was Brie Larson. Brie Larson put in a terrible
Which
performance.
is saying a lot, by the way.
Well, but I know that's but the problem is that number one, I don't blame Brie Larson for that because I think it was intentional by the director. If you look at Brie's resume, Brie can act. I mean, she may be a douchebag at a microphone, but she can act. And you know what? She's from Hollywood. Anybody from Hollywood, I automatically assume is a douchebag. So I don't care about that. I really don't. When
Yeah.
she did her whole thing about I don't care about the opinion of 40-year-old white guys, well, guess what? 40-year-old white guys didn't care about you either. So
So there you agreed on that.
yeah,
I'm sure that's what they agreed upon as well.
yeah. So no, as far as the behind the scenes stuff, I thought, yeah, Bree's a douchebag, blah, blah, blah. However, I don't think Captain Marvel was necessarily as bad as people were making it out to be. And the
But
same
compared
thing,
to
like,
what, though?
huh?
Compared to what?
Compared to, well, like I said, I gave it a 6 out of 10, but keep in mind on my scale, a 5 out of 10 means if the choice is watching paint dry or watching this movie, it's a toss up. Okay, that's a five.
Really? That's your 5?
That because
I
here's
want to
the,
get
because I try to make this clear to
5.
people because what that means. Okay, so 5 is completely like apathetic about the movie, and that's why I say paint dry movie. I don't care. Okay. So 5 is 100% apathy. If you go below 5, it means that watching the movie was a negative experience. If you go above 5, it means watching the movie was a positive experience. And so what I would say is, was the movie bad start to finish? No, I think Brie Larson was bad. I think the characterization of Carol Danvers was all wrong. However, I think that what's his name? Was it Jude Law? Was it who was the bad guy? But
Yeah,
he he did
what
he did
dude?
yeah,
Was
Jude
it
Law.
dude?
He was
Yeah.
good. I loved seeing Phil Coulson again. I liked seeing young Nick Fury. I thought the de aging on him was very well done.
I didn't like
And
how he lost his eye though.
yeah, the losing the eye that was really
That was
cheesy.
stupid.
Yeah, but overall, all the supporting stuff around it, I really enjoyed. I just thought that, they said, okay, shove the stick further up Bree's butt so that she can be stiffer. I don't understand why they were thinking like that. And Laura says, didn't she also go unbearably? Yeah, that's the thing. Like Bree was out there, kind of like Renee Ziegler is now, right? Bree was
Yes.
then what Renee is now.
Yes.
And you froze once again.
No, I didn't. Here we go. Here we go.
You're back.
Here we go.
Okay, you
Here we
froze
go.
for a minute, but then you came back.
That really ticks me off.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why. This has never happened before.
Yeah. But I'm going to say this, and I know, please don't everybody don't hate me. Don't leave the pitchforks at home. I have every intention on going to see Snow White, and
My God!
I am going to give it a fair shake.
No, you're not. You bet. Yeah. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I'll take that back. You will, and it's gonna be a below 5.
It probably, based on what I've seen, you're probably right. But I'm not judging it based on Renee Zegler's stupid comments that she's made on red carpets and stuff.
Renee, is it Renee? No, it's Rachel Zegler, isn't it?
Or Rachel's, whatever her name is. I
Whatever.
don't even care about her. In fact, I do think it's completely laughable that they cast Gal Gadot as the queen, and
I
Snow White
know.
is supposed to be fairer than the queen. And
I
I'm like,
know. She
no,
looks hotter than the.
Gal Gadot is one of the most beautiful faces in Hollywood.
I know.
And you cast her, the very. She's not ugly, but she's not particularly beautiful either. She's just kind of
Exactly.
there.
She's just meh.
Yeah.
Meh.
And so I just don't get it. I don't understand why they cast her. I think because she looks sort of kind of like the animated character, but she's supposed to be the fairest of them all, and she is not.
If they still couldn't have gotten a better actress that
Yeah.
was still looking like the character in the Disney cartoon than her. At least put white makeup on her or something. Just
and Malphys, this is exactly what was wrong with Bree's performance. They kept telling her throughout the movie how her emotions were out of control, but she didn't show any emotion. And I think the problem there is that a lot of people in Hollywood, particularly, by the way, women, and I'm sorry, this is just true. When you see female-directed movies and female-written movies, when women tend to think that to have a strong female, she must be stoic, and that nothing could be further from the truth. I think the reason that Ripley is such a great example of a strong female character is because she showed her maternal instincts in Aliens.
Yeah,
and it's not
Sarah
because
Connor. Sarah Connor was it too. She was great.
Sarah Connor was the same way. She was protecting her baby, And so when you have a woman doing what women naturally do, which is to be the mama bear if their cubs are threatened,
yes,
that is compelling. But when you just have a woman who's standing there acting like a man, basically, the only thing she didn't do was
they don't even know how to do that. To be honest, they think that acting bitchy is manly, like being very, very like, oh, I don't give a fuck,
right.
All snooty and shit like that, and they're like, oh, that's women empowerment. And it's like, no, that's not. That's just a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Please don't do that. There's women who you could actually learn from in the filming history that were excellent.
Yeah. And Fed, you're 100% right. That is the word I was looking for. She is plain.
She is very plain. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll say something about that too, where they'll say, "Well, we wanted her to be plain because."
And although Gal Gadot does look like the queen from Snow White.
She does.
So on that, I mean, that's the problem. Is that how can you find? I don't care who it is, any actress that can compare to Gal Gadot as the queen. I don't know how you do it. I think you should have cast Brie Larson as the queen, and now you can work with.
You know who would have done a good queen? Oh, who was the teacher for Doctor Strange? She did the Queen in Narnia.
Oh gosh,
what's her
name? Make me forget her name, but yeah,
yes.
she was the ancient one.
But I guess she fits the part. She would have done a great queen.
Well, she's very androgynous.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, it's now Danny,
she's already been cast as a bad queen already in Narnia, so
that's true. She already played one evil queen, so
yes.
there's a little bit of a conflict of interest, I think. So Danny says, not only am I not seeing Snow White, I never saw live action Aladdin, Lion King, Mufasa, or any of the other ones. I failed to recall something coming out, but what's the point? I already saw them animated. I totally get that, and I'm not a big fan of the latest trend to take classic animated movies and make live action. The funny thing is that now even non-Disney properties are doing it, because we got How to Train Your Dragon coming out later this year.
Yes.
And I'm not a fan of that as a cash grab-esque thing. The only reason I'm going to see Snow White is because there's been so much hay made about this movie. And so I want to see,
You're just
is it
like
even
torturing yourself.
possible for it to be as bad as people think it is?
You're a sadistic person. You just like torturing yourself.
Um, And let's
Is
see.
that what it is?
Fed says, I think the issue is that they have no understanding what it is to be a man and what goes into our psychology. They're just very pedestrian understanding of what goes on in this. That is true, but
There is some truth to that. Yes.
but if you look at the classic action movies of the 80s and 90s, like the Schwarzenegger movies and stuff like that, being a man is.
Ooh.
And we have somebody super chatted to the one who's not. Oh, no, it did come to me. Woohoo! All right.
That. Thank you, Mr.
You're all right in my book, Phil.
That's right.
All right. So I don't know how well you could hear that. But it says, I wouldn't make Snow White movie, but a serious drama of 7 miners risking their lives protecting a little girl because of her claim to the crown. Well, that is Snow White.
Yes, of course.
But I do think it would be funny if you made them all, instead of dwarves, you made them all little kids, and then she could say that they were minors.
You creep. Put that out there.
And then you got to bring Alan Rickman back from the dead, going, "I said minors, not minors."
I said minors.
And in fact, Robert, I think you just nailed it. Linda Carter could have been the queen, and you could have Linda Carter as the queen and Gal Gadot as Snow White.
Oh.
Granted, Linda Carter is already the queen of Wonder Woman, and Gal Gadot is the new Wonder Woman. So,
that's what would have made it awesome. That's what it would have made it awesome. Don't you think?
Why is it playing twice?
I don't know.
Do you hear it twice?
I heard it come through again.
Yeah. No, this is a different super chat, but it played
nice.
twice on my computer for some reason.
Oh no, I did not hear that.
But it said that way you give. By the way, I know it sounds really exciting because a super chat of 50, but it's 50 like Mexican something, so it's like really only worth like $1.98 or something. But no, I
Oh
do
man, you didn't have to tell everybody that.
Oh no, everybody knows. See, it says MX $50. Yes. Oh man, you made me think of something horrible, but all right. But he said this time around, that way you give 7 actors same chance as Peter Dinklage had in Game of Thrones. I gotta say, Peter Dinklage getting all pissy about 7 dwarves. I wanted to kick Peter Dinklage in his 2-foot tall face. I'm sorry.
Dude, I wanted to toss a dwarf.
Yeah, because don't get me wrong, Peter Dinklage is a great actor. He really is. But for him 100%. To diss the idea of an iconic dwarf role going to a dwarf is when he himself, I mean, he is so the exception. It's so rare for someone who has dwarfism to be able to be successful as an actor. Dinklage is the very rare exception. And I wish, that it wasn't the case, but it is. And it's the same thing that pissed me off when I went and saw Wicked, and none of the frickin' Munchkins were Munchkins.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, because the Munchkin land is supposed to be
victimism got in their own way to getting paid money to be out there.
Well, but the funny thing about the Munchkins is that, of course, when you find out that the king and queen of Munchkinland, the queen of Munchkinland was screwing some guy on the side, and that's how the Wicked Witch was conceived, which means that the Wicked Witch of the West is a freaking Munchkin.
Jeez. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie. I don't plan on seeing it either. I
Yeah.
like my Wizard of Oz, and I'm just gonna leave it at
Oh,
that.
you're not going to see Wicked?
No,
Traitor.
I am totally.
Oh, and let's see. Why? Okay, there it is. Waiting for it to
There
pop
it
up
is.
here. So with another 50 says, but the issue is he is right.
Issue.
He issue that they don't give them serious roles, but treat them as Snow White's seven pests. I get that. I do.
But see, that's what it is, though.
You know, here's the problem. Let's say, I mean, because for Peter Dinklage to come out and say that it's wrong for them to cast dwarves as the seven people that hang out with Snow White would be as if, let's say, Denzel Washington said that black people should not be in Black Panther.
That's very true.
It's the same thing because it is not called Snow White and the Seven Miners. It is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And if you don't like the politically incorrect overtone of that, then don't make it.
Right. Don't make it. Just again, I just have a thing for people just taking content that was, good and trying to change it
For the sake of political correctness.
for and their heads are just so far up their rear
Right.
with self-righteousness.
No, that's all it is. Because Peter Dinklage is really full of himself when he sits there and acts like it's beneath him. When it's like, did you ever see any of his earlier roles? Like when he was in the Chronicles of Narnia, maybe? He was a dwarf in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes.
All right. So he's telling other little people, if that's the politically correct term, that they should not take the same role that he took to become successful.
It looked like we got another one coming in. Here it is. I know that is why I say the genuinely progressive thing would have made a movie about the dwarves, not Snow White.
Like make the dwarves the center part of the movie.
Oh God, that would have been even worse.
They call it the Seven Dwarves and Snow White.
And Snow White. That would have been worse.
How about, and you could have the poster like with this mean looking face, like filling up the entire poster, and it'll say Grumpy's back.
Oh dear Lord.
So Lore Reloaded is back and says, just came back. If I'm understanding you correctly, are we upset because we are using little persons to be the dwarves? Weren't we upset when because we were whitewashing, using people whom weren't that specific issue? Yeah, well, you see, that's what my problem is that Peter Dinklage, the most famous little person in Hollywood, is the reason why the original version of this movie was 7 random hipsters. Like, if you've ever seen any of the pictures of this movie before it was digitally, it became the special edition that they're going to release now. It looked like 7 hipsters hanging out with Snow White. But then they digitally replaced the 7 hipsters with what looks like the original 7 dwarves, but which makes them look like nightmare fuel, to be honest, because they look accurate to the drawings of the original dwarves, as opposed to looking like actual dwarves.
I mean, so what do you think about that the private premiere?
Oh, that they're not doing a public premiere because of the fan backlash. You know what? On the one hand, I got to say this. I mean, would Miss Zegler survive the night if there was a public world premiere?
I don't think so.
She is so hated by so many people right now.
Yes.
And granted, I don't hate her. I just think I think just like with Brie Larson, I think she's just a douchebag. And and I don't want to
classify as hating on her though.
Huh?
Wouldn't that classify that as hating on her?
Well, if you could come up with a better term.
Yeah,
I think I think we hate speech if I called her a Karen because that's specifically a female thing, right? So,
Who knows? I don't think so. Well, that's just me.
uh,
The pecs were. Yeah, thank you. I'm just
yeah, the
looking at
Pecs
that
from Willow.
one. Peck.
But and yeah, that was,
But
and
most of
but
them
notice, I mean,
very
like
passable
Pecs
as
was a
actors.
derogatory term,
It was.
but it was meant to be, and the way they used it in the movie, Val Kilmer, his character was an insensitive prick,
Yes, he
uh,
was.
but he had an arc where he began to accept Willow, and so by the end of it, he and Willow were good friends.
Yep.
Despite the fact that he was basically, it would be like if a member of the KKK and a black guy start out a movie meeting each other, and then by the end of the movie they're best
We're
friends,
best
and the guy
friends.
that was
That's
in the KKK
exactly. That's how that
realizes,
works out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and Mercer still trying to change the subject to Knight Rider for some reason.
Knight Rider.
He's been obsessed with Knight Rider lately. He keeps posting in these
That'd be
chats
fun.
about Knight Rider.
Probably been binging some of the old shows.
Yeah, which don't get me wrong, I do like Knight Rider, but I mean, it's a show of its day.
Yes,
You
that's
know.
exactly right. It's a show of its day.
Yeah,
And if I feel nostalgic, then I'll watch it.
yeah.
Or if I want to feel nostalgic, then I'll watch it.
Robert says, well, on the lighter note, this past Saturday's Me TV episode of TOS was Whom Gods Destroy. That was some Trek at its best, though just too bad in future Trek will never we never found out what happened to Captain Garth. Now, do you remember that episode? I know you're not the Trek encyclopedia like I am.
No, I am not the Trek encyclopedia, so
So that's an episode that features Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl, playing an Orion girl, dancing around, humping on Kirk,
oh, okay.
while they're in space prison that's being run by the inmates. Hey, I'm not exaggerating. Tell them if I'm lying. I'm not lying.
That sounds like a nice scene for some Trekkie corn.
Yeah.
Some corn.
So let's just say that Shatner was not at half mast that day.
Okay, so yeah, that I think that it just tells it all when they're trying to make this premiere very private. They're trying to do the most damage control.
Right. And the question the question becomes, are they doing the private premiere because they're truly afraid of because the fans are so pissed, or are they doing it because they know the movie's that bad?
I think the movie's that bad.
You think
That's
so?
my opinion. I think the movie's that bad. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to make it go away slow, like very nonchalantly.
Yes. And by the way, that is a fair point. It's not space prison; it's a space sanitarium.
Actually,
Yes. Actually. And Stanley was was saying, was she an Orion or an Orion? Which do you know about the Orion Orion
no,
thing?
I don't know that.
Do you know what an Orion is?
I don't know that.
Those are the green chicks,
Oh, the green chicks. Okay.
right? The horny
Dude.
green chicks.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the horny green chicks were called Orions in the original series. They were called Orions in the Next Generation and in Enterprise. They've always been Orions, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the first time we hear about Orions was in an episode where they didn't actually appear, but we see one of their ships. And what happens is the Enterprise is attacked by a ship, and when they're trying to figure out who the mystery villain is on the ship, and Spock goes, "They're Orions," and he explains why. Right. So fast forward to the animated series, right? So in the animated series, they actually make direct reference to that episode. Okay, the episode is called Journey to Babel. and they talk about what happened in that episode, but the people they're talking to are not green, they're blue, and they don't call themselves Orions, they call themselves Orions.
Is it the same blue people with the Martian ears?
No. Those are Andorians.
Andorians, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are just blue people that call themselves Orions, but they keep talking about what happened in Journey to Babel, which was the Orions. And so there was this huge thing about, okay,
This huge debate.
by the way, I'll tell you, here's the secret truth of this, and it's so funny. But this is 100% true. When they made the Star Trek animated series, William Shatner, because he's Canadian, he was living in Canada, and he didn't want to fly down to the States just to record for a kids show.
Right. Of course.
So he literally phoned in his performance. Okay, so they would record him over. They would record him over a phone line, recording his.
That must have sounded terrible.
No, it didn't. It doesn't. Well, keep in mind this is the 1970s, so it didn't sound that bad for the day.
Okay.
And his voice doesn't stand out or anything during the show. You can't tell it's recorded differently. But the funny thing about it is that William Shatner famously mispronounces things. And there's some behind the scenes footage from the original series and stuff where he's struggling to pronounce certain like sabotage. Right. He cannot say the word sabotage, so he says sabotage or something like that, right? But and so whenever with the animated series, because of the scheduling differences and all that, whatever William Shatner said, if he mispronounces something, then everybody else starts just saying it the way Shatner did in order to make the episode consistent. And so in the original series, I know you've heard of this episode because the most famous episode from the original series is The Trouble with Tribbles.
Yes, of course. Okay.
So in The Trouble with Tribbles, the Tribbles were eating this grain that they were shipping. Mm-hmm. The grain was called Quattro Triticale. Quattro Triticale, right?
Triticale. Yeah.
When they did a sequel episode in the animated series, it was Quinto Triticale. Because that's what Shatner said.
That's what Shatner said.
Yeah. So when they recorded his dialogue for that episode, instead of saying Orion, he said Orion. And so they just went with it, right?
They just went with it. Oh, yeah, naturally.
So fast forward 50 years now to my personal favorite animated series, especially of recent time, Star Trek Lower Decks. Mm-hmm. And so one of the crew members in Star Trek Lower Decks is an Orion, right? And in this episode that aired just a few months ago, they were in this Orion temple and they were trying to get some artifact or something. And then the door opens up and in through the door come blue people that look exactly like the blue people from the animated series.
No.
And so the three green people look over and they go, blue Orions, and then the blue people look over at them and go, green Orions.
That's great.
So
I love that.
It's actually just that you say Orion if you're the ethnicity of the blues. Yes. That's how they say it. That's their accent.
Oh gosh. It looks like they've established then some.
Yes. So I absolutely love the fact that Lower Decks solved the mystery.
Jesus.
And then they actually in that same episode at one point they go on trial and he's like he was like, she's behaving in a most not Orion manner. And she's like, we are acting with honor and bravery and it's pronounced Orion. So
oh man.
What's wrong?
Well, going with sci-fi. What is did you also hear about those 60 episodes?
Oh yeah, because we were going to talk about that, but since Mr. Know-It-All didn't show up because apparently he didn't know everything because he thought he was going to be here today. So yeah, one of the things that we were planning on talking about was the Star Wars Underworld series that never happened. However, has been rated heavily for stories that we've seen in modern Star Wars. I don't know if you caught that part of it. So
No.
yeah, the elements of the Star Wars Underworld series were adapted into Rogue One and the Andor
Hmm.
series.
Hmm.
Parts of it were actually adapted into the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
And which, if you think
So
about it,
all the ones that we liked.
yeah, but if you think, and you froze again in a very unflattering position. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Hold on, I'm good. I'm good.
It looked like you were about to offer somebody services that I don't. Yeah, it's like okay, dude. Um,
I love you, Mike.
don't,
Oh no, this Mike. This Mike.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, look, you're a nice guy, but
It's like,
and you are better looking than Mr. Know-It-All, but you're not that good looking.
don't swing that way.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you'd have to look a lot better than that. But the, I mean, you'd have to be like
Well, you're
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
saying there's a chance.
And thank you, Oopa,
What
for
did you think of Lilo and Stitch trailer?
Oh, what did we think of the Lilo and Stitch trailer? Did you see
the
it?
Lilo and Stitch trailer. What did you think?
I
And
was
thank
ready
you,
to hate on it.
You were ready to hate on it
Yeah, but
because you're a jerk.
no, because of past traumatizations from Disney. However, they did Lilo's voice right.
Mm-hmm.
They did Stitch's voice right.
So, is there an actual trailer, or are you just talking about the Super Bowl thing? Because I didn't know there was a trailer.
So yeah, it was like this little clip of showing of them talking. Did you see it?
Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. So Disney
Almost.
logo.
Yeah, it's like they show like little clips of them talking, and it looked pretty clean to me. I
Right.
mean, trying to make it live again. It's a live action of a cartoon we've already seen.
Right. Now the aliens look very like Clone Warsy type
Mhm.
of, I mean they're CG animation, obviously.
Stitch was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I see where they tried not to make him so bright, to make it look real, I guess. But
The
he's
girl
still
that plays
really-
Lilo is cute, but not as cute as the animated version. Sorry.
exactly.
I'm not
Sounds like
trying.
it, though.
Look, there are adorable Samoan girls out there. I'm
Yes,
sure
there
you could have found someone cuter than that. I'm sorry, you could
It's just the personality.
have. So this is one of those. But she's got a great personality.
They got a great personality.
Poor girl.
I know. We shouldn't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would say this. Now I haven't actually watched the trailer except for right here, right now, kind of just my first reaction is Stitch looks like Stitch. Lilo does not look like Lilo. That's why I say they should have gotten, when I say, like, I'm not saying that the girl that's playing her is like, vulgar and unattractive or something.
It's just not Lilo.
But yeah, Lilo is supposed to be, shall we just say, a little fuller. I wouldn't say fat, but not skinny. This girl's skinny. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes
Yeah.
complete sense.
And so she's supposed to have like those chubby cheeks that you just want to pinch, kind of thing. That's not her. But yeah, Stitch, I think he looks like Stitch. Will the movie be good? Maybe. But, again, for the most part, I don't care about these live action remakes of classic cartoons.
Yep.
I am not going to.
We've seen it already.
Yeah. Like I said, the only reason I'm going to see Snow White is because I want to see if it can actually be that bad. Is this going to be a true dumpster fire of a movie, or is it going to just be a movie that, if Ziegler, whatever, had kept her mouth shut, maybe it would have done okay, and who knows, maybe it'll be a huge hit, because keep in mind, the normies don't pay attention to crap like that.
Yeah.
And the movie is obviously marketed for the normies.
Yes, exactly.
It's for the families that want to take their
Well-
kids to the movies to see the classic Disney magic.
I was gonna say earlier, Stanley asked the question who the audience was for, or what the movie's audience was.
You
So
mean for Snow White or
for
for?
Snow White, for Snow White.
I would say honestly, it's for families, young families that want to take their kids to what they consider a safe movie.
Yeah.
Um, and by the way, that's something Disney used to be known for. You know, like if a Disney movie hit theaters, it doesn't matter if it was one of their live action movies like The Apple Dumpling Gang or an animated movie like,
It was for family.
yeah, that you could take the kids and it was a safe movie to take your kids to. Um, that's one of my problems. I'll be honest. I mean, put all my cards on the table. One of my big problems with some of the stuff they've been doing with Star Wars and Star Trek and even the MCU to a lesser degree is they're trying to make it a little more edgy as much as they can push.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, I don't need that because you know who liked Star Wars back in the 70s and 80s? Everybody.
Yes.
You know,
I mean,
everybody
it was
liked it.
a great film
Yeah.
back then. No
So
one's made it before like that.
right. So you don't need to make it edgier. You don't need to make it grittier. It was lightning in a bottle. It was darn near perfection as a trilogy. Um, the first movie stumbled a bit, but that's because that one was directed by George Lucas. Sorry, George. You're just not a good director, buddy.
Oh my god.
Look, I'm not in it for your revolution, and I'm not in it for you. I expect to get well paid. I'm in it for the money. Who writes that kind of dialogue?
Oh
And then
no.
Harrison Ford, of all actors, delivers it that flat. So, I was going to Tashi
So
Station for some power converters.
it's power converters. The bad motivator. Think I'm a bad motivator too
Yeah,
myself.
granted, I will say this: Anakin. Like people complained that Anakin was a whiny little brat.
Yeah.
Look at his son.
Yeah, right?
You know,
He was just as whiny. That's so true.
yeah, they were both whiny
So
little brats.
so what do you I
Um,
mean, again, what do you think about these 60 episodes? They're supposed to be like all dark and gritty and
right, and so yeah,
things
the
like
dark.
that. And
It was supposed to be dark, gritty, and sexy, and all that. And by the way, here's the funny thing, and you're going to love this, Mercer, since you're here right now, because Mercer is one of those people that absolutely loves Andor. He thinks Andor is like the best thing in Star Wars, where I say Andor is the worst thing in Star Wars. Um,
I don't think it's the worst.
well, because of what it does to the lore. It's not the worst as far as production is concerned. Worst as far as production is concerned, I'm sorry, is the holiday special. But right neck and neck with the holiday special is A New Hope.
Freaking okay.
Production wise, that movie sucks. Come on, look at it. It literally looks like someone took a plastic model and rammed a firecracker into it and lit it off because that's
But
what
when
it
I was
was.
watching it back then, I was a normie and it
Oh, it was awesome back then. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Acolyte was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's a whole nother year. Actual Luke Skywalker dialogue. Yes.
Wow, wow,
That's
wow.
what you said when Biggs was in town. Yeah. So
So what is so since this has been uncovered and everything like that, is it just some news that we heard? They're not trying to do anything.
yeah,
with it.
it's what happened was so what's his name? McCullum, the guy that was the executive producer on the prequels. He did a podcast interview where he dropped a couple of bombshells on it as far as he was the one that talked about the fact that they had 60 scripts done. He's the one that talked about what the budget was going to be $40 million per episode, which is even more than what like
Yeah.
Acolyte costs today.
Mm-hmm.
That and we're talking about $40 million an episode in like 1990s money, or not 90, but early 2000s money. So
Yeah, that would have not worked. It would have had to been a spectacular story.
yeah.
Or stories.
And so let me answer this to Laura real quick. So he
Yes,
says
go
it
right
hasn't
ahead.
seen Andor, but generally you, meaning me, doesn't like the stuff that takes the black and white storytelling of OG Star Wars and makes things gray. Does Andor do that? It absolutely does that. But
It does do that,
not only
but I
does it
liked
do
it.
that,
I really liked it.
of course you do. But I would say that not only does Andor make the black and white aspects of Star Wars gray, it straight up flips it on its head. Because in Andor, you find out that the Empire was not a bad place until a group of terrorists started attacking Imperial facilities, and
Right.
they
That's your thought
purposefully
on that shit.
they
Jesus.
purposefully cause the empire to declare martial law just so that
Oh,
they can get more people to join
brother.
their rebellion. It's
This
all
guy
just
stinks.
it's just Republicans versus Democrats. That's all it is. Neither one is evil or good, except that there are terrorists working on one side trying to get the other
God.
side to do bad things.
All right, this is a
So,
conversation
but
for Mr. Know-It-All
yeah,
more than
well,
me.
Mr. Know-It-All hates when I talk about that because
Yes. Well, see, I don't completely agree with you either, but I don't have the gravitas to continue it with you like that.
but here's the thing: like when you look at the 60 scripts, that's where they got that aspect of Andor from, because in the 60 scripts and there are other corroborating interviews to this, is that they make Palpatine a heroic character in this series. Now, do keep in mind, this series takes place at the exact same time that Andor does. They said in between episodes 3 and 4. So that's when Andor takes place. That's when this show was supposed to take place. Palpatine was the good guy until he gets screwed over by some evil woman that happens to be connected to the Coruscant Mafia or whatever, and that's when he goes crazy.
And so you're saying the Empire were the good guys.
Yeah, so that was a Lucas. So people, oh, George Lucas's brilliant vision. It was the same crap that we got in some of the modern stuff.
Well, no, Stanley, he's not gonna filibuster me. It's just I don't have the facilities to be going back and forth with this because he knows more about it than I do.
Right. But I would say that
However, Mr. Know-It-All would give him a run for his money, and
Right.
I'll just get the popcorn.
But here's my problem. So Laura was saying, rewriting the Empire to be evil is stupid. I assume he means good or to not be evil. But humanizing them, I don't think can be bad. If all they did, like for example, if you made the story, say about and by the way, they absolutely had places in Andor series to do this, because one of the main characters is a guy who was a cop, and he was a good cop who was investigating a murder. And by the way, the murderer he was tracking down, Andor, the main character who we're supposed
The
to think
main
is the hero.
character.
Yeah. But so this cop who's genuinely trying to do his job and catch a murderer, but then is kicked off the security force because he wouldn't let it go. And then he joins the an Imperial thing as a logistics guy, and he ends up hooking up with this Imperial chick that's higher up, and and so they're making him into, basically, he's like her version of Darth Vader. He's the
Right.
evil, but they're making him out to be evil when he should be the hero of the show. And
They're
that
trying
I
to
would
get a
actually,
murder and all that.
yeah, he's genuinely trying to do the right thing. He genuinely believes in law and order and all that. And you could make the entire show around how misguided he becomes because he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's not. And I would totally be down for that. But the way they set up the show is that the only reason the Empire is the evil organization we know in the original trilogy is because two people, a guy named Luthen and Saul Guerrera, are a couple of terrorists. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not saying that because
Right. That's
they are literally terrorists. They plan to bomb and attack Imperial bases specifically to get them to clamp down on the populace in martial law, just so that people will get pissed off at the government and join their rebellion. And that is that's in the show. I'm not like pulling stuff out of thin air. That is dialogue in the show where you see Luthen and Saul sitting down and
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
can't talk about that though.
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have the facilities to combat that. So,
Well, but and so I
so
just
you're taking advantage of me right now.
yes, I'm totally. You can tell Mr. Know-It-All that you felt like that you were raped during the show.
Damn.
But no, but in all seriousness, I don't like the idea, and because that because there are people that have jokingly said
You just
forever
don't. Yeah, you just don't like the idea that
the Empire is
the Empire was this. Well, I think you just don't like the idea that the Empire had become bad or is bad for some stupid reason. That I'm
well,
sure if they came up with a better reason, you would have been like, okay.
but you see, the problem is that they're suggesting in this show that life in the Empire. Because if you look at Andor in season 1,
Right, I
pri-
remember.
prior to Lore hasn't seen it. That's the only reason I'm saying this.
Oh, okay.
So prior to the terrorist attack that happens midway through season 1, prior to that, keep in mind, people had freedom of movement. People could choose whatever career they want. There were people that own their own stores. That's actually a character in this. There are people that are successful politicians that are ideologically opposed to the emperor's reforms and stuff. And so, as far as society at large is concerned, life is good. And so, and people say, well, what about something that happened? Yeah, and I would say the same thing. It's like, well, people don't think that the United States is necessarily an evil empire just because lithium mines in some third world country are deplorable, right? So I don't think that that's a fair thing to say. Oh, well, there's this exception over here. Overall,
Right.
the populace of the empire was content, happy, and generally wealthy. Then the attacks happen and things go south. My big problem with that is not that couldn't be a compelling story. It's that it happens when it happens, because this is after Revenge of the Sith. And so if things were actually going pretty good up until Andor, then that means that the Emperor was right when he was trying to fight the Jedi, because the Emperor was simply trying to establish law and order in the Empire, and he wanted peace and all that. And because we saw the result of that at the beginning of Andor, he was kind of right. And the Jedi genuinely wanted to overthrow him, which is what he argued in front of the Senate.
So Mercer said something there.
Let's see. Luther knew the Empire was bad, and he didn't. And if he didn't act soon, it would be too late to anything later. You know what? Let me say this. Right now, you can find at least a dozen senators in the United States Senate that would say the exact same thing about our current administration. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not buying that.
Oh God.
Just because Luthen was an extremist on the same political spectrum as Mon Mothma, right? And Mon Mothma was, by the way, not a terrorist. She was opposed to what Luthen was doing, but Luthen is just an extremist, but he's on the same side. It doesn't make sense the way they set it up. If they had set this, say, during the Clone Wars, or even just before the Clone Wars, like in between episode
You
1
wouldn't
and
even
2.
mind the story. You just don't like when it happened.
Right. If it didn't happen when it happened, because it, in my opinion, completely undermines the prequels. Because the Empire is evil in episode 4, but based on Andor, it was actually good in episode 3. And so if you had moved Andor to and I actually think the best time to put it would be in between episode 1 and 2, when Anakin was a little kid and not old enough to be an influence on anything. And so if you have it take place then, and you see that, because in episode 1, Palpatine doesn't say anything even remotely nefarious, right? Like he's like, oh, little Skywalker, we'll be looking at your career with great interest, right? And he says that he wants to rid the Republic of corruption. That was his first promise to Padme when he was nominated. And so you could make it out that in episode 1, he was like Wilson Fisk in Daredevil. He was genuinely trying to break good. But then something happens, Andor series, in between episode 1 and episode 2, so that by the time we see him in episode 2, now he's become evil Palpatine. That would make a lot more sense to me. At least the retcon would be minimal. The only thing you really have to explain is why the heck was Darth Maul working for him.
And then Mercer has another comment about Luthien.
Let's see. Luthen said they are choking us too slowly. The Empire is taking people's rights away gradually, and by the time people notice, it would be too late. Yeah, but the problem is that's just Luthen's perspective. That would be like saying that, hey, you know what? Osama bin Laden, he was really worried that the United States was, going to start trying to take over the world, and that's why 9/11 happened, right? Does that make Osama bin Laden the good guy? Absolutely not, of course. And so you get what I'm saying.
No, yeah, well, using it in that analogy, but I don't know if that's like.
Well, I'm just saying, because you know what? The only thing we know is what they show us of Luthen. And Luthen believes that the Empire is bad, sure. But what we actually see of the Empire doesn't corroborate that. And that's my problem with it. Now, the other thing, okay, so let's say this. If before the attack, if we saw that, like, if you go into, like, say you're on Coruscant, right? Because Luthen lived on Coruscant, as did Mon Mothma. We had plenty of scenes on Coruscant, so they could have easily done this. Is what if every time we saw someone in Coruscant, there were stormtroopers everywhere, and the stormtroopers were constantly roughing people up or checking their papers and stuff. We find out, like, when the one cop wanted to transfer, they didn't let him because he didn't have security clearance or something. And so, there was no evidence that freedoms were being curtailed. There was just Luthen saying they were. And that's not good storytelling. We should feel like the Empire is slowly closing its grasp on people instead of just being told that and believing him because he's the hero.
And then he's got a couple more about Namek. Said that the oppression.
I don't know who Namek
oppression
is.
and fascism would just keep growing.
Again, people say that about Trump.
And then he also says, "Oh, what do you mean? We see the ISB; they don't have fair trials, which is why Andor had no choice but to kill the second cop."
First of all, the trials that we saw are after the terrorist attack. And as far as Andor having no choice but to kill the second cop, that's a load of BS. The cop was on his knees, begging for his life, swearing he wouldn't say anything. If Andor was any kind of hero, he wouldn't have just shot him in the face.
I don't know. Would you have believed him if he said he wouldn't have said a word?
Well, he could say that, or I don't know.
You can't just,
it's not like Andor. Wait.
He said so. He said he wouldn't say anything.
Hold on.
You just gotta believe him.
Here's a perfectly logical solution, and this is the problem. The writers didn't think of anything like this, but how about he stuns the guy because he's leaving the planet? So he stuns the guy. By the time they can wake him up, he's already gone.
I don't know. Mercer says there were no fair trials before.
Based on what? You're just saying that. That's the problem. You can assert that, but when you watch the show, that's not what the show gives us.
The second cop was a hero. He instigated the fight. Was he the instigator? Man, that's so long ago since I've seen this.
The second cop, Andor. Okay, the first cop, you could argue Andor killed in self-defense. The second cop, Andor straight up murdered him. And and I'm sorry, there's no way around that. And it's bad enough. Like, I didn't like Andor in Rogue One because he shot the other guy. You know,
Yeah.
well, think about this. I mean, and you tell me if you think I'm full of crap, but as far as like just from a writer's scenario, I know you can write, so
Mhm.
and the Star Wars universe well enough
Yeah.
and so you tell me if this would be more Star Warsy than what we got in Rogue One. So the two of them are cornered. The stormtroopers are coming. The one dude says, "There's no way I can get over that wall," right? And Andor, being the heroic guy that he is like he takes out his blaster, he hands his friend another blaster, he says, "We're gonna make it out of here, one way or another." And then you have the injured guy go, "No, give me your blaster, you get out of here."
And so you make it
And
a
so
heroic
he makes a
getaway.
last stand to slow him down.
I think what they probably tried to do there was again try to make it a little bit more gritty and controversial.
The problem is that overall the movie wasn't.
Yeah.
And so if the entire movie was gritty and dirty and all that, and they were just trying to show us these are the lowlifes of the rebellion, I could kind of understand. I still wouldn't
But
like.
but even if you did it the way that you said, right?
Mhm.
We don't know those characters that well to even give a shit.
Well, I know, but at least that would establish, like, because then we're supposed to care about Andor, but Andor's a dick. I mean, the one thing we saw him do was literally shoot his friend in the back of the head because he couldn't climb over a wall.
Instead of doing something that would have made Andor look good, is what
Right.
you're saying.
Right.
You wanted
And so-
to write something in there to make him look likable
right. Because
or
there's
with
nothing
some sort of
likable about that.
honor.
Or hey, let's say here's another way you could do it, and actually would introduce us to another character, and I think could be interesting. Is what if Andor and the other guy were sitting there, and the stormtroopers, they hear him coming, but before the stormtroopers show up, an Imperial droid shows up, and he's like, "I'm sorry, but this is not the path for you." And he grabs him and throws Andor over the wall.
Oh God!
And then he
Okay.
can look at the other guy and just say, "There's no way that you would survive that throw."
And then have the droid do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You just don't like
I don't
how
like
they
making
made
the hero
Andor.
an ass.
Yeah,
You know,
I see that. Again, it's difficult to say about the Empire. What you said about the Empire, though, it's tough to say. I mean, there's just a lot of speculation in there. There's not enough information. Your thought is plausible, but
well, I just don't
Empire is
see.
the Empire, and I understand what you mean by if you put it in a different time frame or when it happened, because the Empire is going to be bad anyways.
Right, but like if we think about the Empire, okay, if we go to episode 4, right? Because which was our introduction to the whole universe. So what did we see in episode 4? Well, we saw Tatooine in the beginning, and on Tatooine, they're very remote,
Yes.
right? And the only thing we know is that Luke doesn't like the Empire because he says that in dialogue. But we don't really know much about the
I
Empire.
don't know why.
Yeah, we do see the space battle, and the space battle clearly shows that the Empire has the rebels completely outmatched,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we've established the power of the Empire in that beginning scene. We've also established the alignment of our hero by just having him say that he hates the Empire. However, everything we see of the Empire is bad, right? They blow up a planet. They, they immediately, they're like shoot first and ask questions later when they see the
Right.
Millennium Falcon.
Everything's bad.
Yeah.
The way the Empire is supposed to be.
Right. And the stormtroopers are complete dicks. And the only reason that they survive is because Obi-Wan uses the Force on them.
Right.
And so the Empire is portrayed as bad from the first time we see them. In Andor, if Andor was the first time you ever saw anything in Star Wars, there's nothing inherently bad about the Empire. at least not in the first few episodes, except for that, people basically talk about how the Empire is bad, or the Empire is, what Mercer was saying, and that the Empire is going to do bad things. Not that the Empire is doing bad things, but that they are going to do bad things.
I'd have to rewatch that again.
Yeah, Laura says, problem is you are basing this on only one perspective. We are given others based on other shows. But this is the first show that really fills in the gap that this is trying to do. This one really shows you what Imperial society was at that time. And so even if you look at things like, what was it, Rebels or whatever was the animated series around the same time,
Yeah.
On Rebels, we see, like the people that are already kind of on the fringes of society and stuff. We're not seeing like mainstream life on Coruscant kind of thing. At least not, I don't remember all of Rebels, but that's, it seemed to me more like these guys were trying to avoid, bigger
Oh,
places.
I froze. Son of
You
a
did.
gun.
I thought you were
Yeah.
falling asleep.
I know, it looks like my eyes are shut.
Yeah.
No, come on now.
And Laura says, think about like the California ministry. By the way, just so you know, code word for the evil German regime is Californian. So just so you're aware.
It's Californian.
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
the California ministry versus its civilian and local garrisons. Except that but the problem is, see, like California is falling apart. And you can, like, if you walk the streets of San Francisco, you better have like, plastic bags over your feet. And so you can actually see the effect of California in California. And as far as the original Californians that you're talking about, that's a whole other thing that you can argue about the history of. But I mean, let's be real. The governor of California duped the people by making promises about a better life and then quickly turned it into a military dictatorship. The problem is that in the Empire of Andor, it doesn't look like a military dictatorship. It just looks like a space society.
It's not coming back either.
And Laura wants to know if you can come on. Yes, absolutely. I said you could earlier. So let me, I'll send you the link here. Let me invite guest and Gmail. I assume you still have the same.
Let me get out of here and see what happens.
Yeah. The same email. Hope you. If you have the same email, you should have it in your inbox like right now. And Stan going, we want lore. We want lore. Jerks. Thomas wants to know if I fired Mr. Know-It-All. No, Mr. Know-It-All, he didn't respond. I sent him an email asking him to list 5 things that he did, and that if he didn't respond to the email that he quit. So I think he just quit. Looks like Gonzo is frozen. Yes, he's frozen a couple of times, so he's exiting and coming back. Let's see. And Stan says that I put him to sleep. You are such a jerk, Stan. Just saying. So hopefully Laura got my message. We'll see. So Laura will probably want to pick a fight with me. And let's see. Because Laura is a jerk. But that's okay. We'll see. We'll make this smaller. We'll make this smaller. And we'll make Mr. Know-It-All invisible. And then we'll wait for Lore. So, yeah. That's, this is the exciting part of the show where I just ramble on for a minute. Robert is falling asleep because, people are taking their time. Sorry, Robert. I can't control that. Thomas says, "Oh well, Mr. Know-It-All can work at find a job at Walmart." Yeah, Mr. Know-It-All would make a great Walmart greeter, I think. Because he's like 7 feet tall, and dark skin, perfect guy to go. How you doing? Welcome to Walmart. I would pay money to see that actually. Um, all right, and Gonzo is back.
Sorry about that, fellas. I have no idea I don't know if my computer's getting too hot or what.
Well, I highly doubt it. I mean, you're not putting like naked pictures of yourself on it, are you?
Absolutely not.
So Thomas was suggesting that Mr. because you missed it. So they asked if I'd fired Mr. Know-It-All, and I explained to them that in fact, Mr. Know-It-All, I sent him a letter asking him to tell me 5 things that he's done, and he hasn't responded, and so he quit.
Say what?
You remember? I sent him an email asking him to list 5 things he had done last week, and he didn't respond, so that means he quit.
That means he quit.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the one, the only, the camera not functioning Lore Reloaded is here.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
All right, I'll try to find something for my avatar. I can't use my camera right now. Everybody doing all right?
Yeah,
Excellent.
Be better if you weren't invisible, but yeah, not bad.
It helps. Yeah, I need to make sure the right microphone is too. So, while I'm working on that though,
Yeah, go ahead and say what you were going to say then. While you're on here.
yeah. So, well, I'm gonna multitask. So, what I was trying to talk about is if you watched all the other series, I haven't watched all of them, but if you watch like Clone Wars and Rebels and a couple of the other series, what you see in Clone Wars especially is it's almost a masterstroke. I'm not saying it's consistent or necessarily where the original intent, but when the Clone Wars were going on, there were episodes where you see the populace on Coruscant, but especially in the Outer Rim, struggling because of this war going on.
Right.
And the Jedi themselves have went from protectors of the universe to fighting this war. So a lot of the populace actually were becoming disenfranchised from the Jedi. And it was just causing a lot of chaos. And that was the point of it, to cause suffering. And then the Empire comes in and defeats the Confederacy, or the CIS, whatever we called them, and restores order and everything. And all I was saying, I haven't seen Andor, so maybe this just rewrites all of that. But all I was saying is I could see where the Empire is absolutely evil, but the entire universe itself, especially the Outer Rim, just doesn't see that. All they see is this military coming in, restoring balance, restoring order, and even creating credits that are more profitable than what they had beforehand. So it looks like on the surface that the Empire is actually this good thing helping people. And that's similar to what happened in like Germany. Like Hitler was
Very true.
the governor of California was a horrible person, but it looked like he was giving health care to people, certain people. He was restoring the roads. He did a lot of quote unquote good, but that's not really what he was doing. It was just all smoke and mirrors.
I agree with you that would have been a good way to do it, but that's the problem. That's not what we get in Andor. I think the problem with Andor is that the show just assumes that the Empire is bad, so they don't bother to establish that there's anything bad about the Empire. And
You think it didn't go into much of the people being disenfranchised and trying to make the Empire be the bad people that you say, or what we think they are?
Well, the problem is that the only people we see that are disenfranchised are people who are flagrant lawbreakers. And so, and no, but that's the thing is that if you're doing something like, let's say,
Why are they breaking the law? Besides Andor murdering people.
Yeah, murder is a little thing. I mean, that's the problem. We don't get enough information on what the Empire is like. If they're being forced into this law-breaking lifestyle because of the Empire, I could get behind that, but they don't seem to establish that. Instead, what we see on screen is that people who are murderers are unjustly being prosecuted because they're trying to bring him in for murder, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The guy literally killed 2 cops, and the bad guy of the series is the guy trying to bring him in for it. So I have a very tough time accepting that premise because Andor himself is a murderer in the beginning of the series. Even though you can justify the first one, you cannot justify the second one.
See, what would be interesting to me, I guess, and it sounds like they didn't do this, but what could have been interesting was if you had them on an outpost or a planet where everything was going great. The Empire, like the war had devastated it, and the Empire was the best thing that could ever happen. You have Saw Gerrera, who sees what the Empire really is, but he can't prove that to them, so he does these terrorist acts to try to convince them. So he's doing it against a good element of the Empire to ultimately defeat what is truly the bad part. You see what I'm saying? That could have been.
And I could see that, because the only thing we really get in Andor is like a flashback of Andor as a kid on this remote, like jungle planet that's being strip mined. And they talk about how horrible it was, but honestly, it's not like we see a civilization being wiped out. We just see a jungle with, like we're supposed to be horrified at deforestation or something. And so that I think would have been more effective is like, what if they were strip mining right through, downtown of a city? That would, I think, would be, granted, it would be a bigger visual effects shot, but that would be more effective at showing that the Empire is truly evil, as opposed to, oh no, they're mining valuable minerals.
Right, but my question is, what if for this specific installation, they weren't the bad guys? The Empire, the Confederacy had taken the Confederacy was strip mining. The Empire comes in, they hire the locals. The planet itself has no strategic value, doesn't really have a lot, even though they were taking minerals.
I get what that would be a good story, actually, to make it so that you present the Empire as the heroic characters, but then we could also cut to, we know behind the scenes they're evil.
Right.
That's good. Yeah, that I think would be a far better story than what we got. Because
that goes back to what I was saying before. Then you just didn't like the fact that the reason what they put on there, why they were the bad guys, the Empire was the bad guys. You just didn't like the reason they gave you,
they didn't really give.
Gave you.
They basically, they're bad because they're the Empire.
Because they're bad. Yeah, that's what you're saying, and that's what I said earlier. That I think you just didn't like how they presented the Empire as being bad without a good reason.
Right, but if we had seen, if we had seen the Empire being like what Laura was saying, so you have this Confederacy that's oppressing people, the Empire swoops in, gets rid of them, and saves the people, and so now the people there think the Empire is great. But then we also see that, we can show scenes at the Imperial Senate and stuff and see that the Empire actually has these nefarious plans and all these terrible things they're doing, and that whole thing is just a ruse to convince the people they're good. And so then you can have a character like Luthen and Saw Gerrera think the only way we're going to get the people to see the truth is to, do something radical. But we didn't get any of that kind of a setup. All we saw, it would be almost as if what Laura's talking about happens, where the Empire gets rid of the criminal element, and then we start right there after the criminal element's been wiped out and everybody's doing well. And so we don't have a reason, and we don't get any of the scenes back on Coruscant to find out about the nefarious plans. So there's no. The only reason that we have to mistrust the Empire is because Luthen says the Empire is bad, and I don't buy that.
Well, and again, I haven't seen the more recent shows because I've just been busy. But then the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, it really is just suggested that the reason why the galaxy accepted the Empire overall was because the war had devastated it. The Jedi had, in the populace's eyes, the war had devastated everything. The Jedi had abandoned who they originally were, and the Emperor comes in and just restores everything and just makes everything good again. That's why it was accepted so readily.
Well, and Thomas points out, and I know you wouldn't know this, Lord, but Gonzo would, is that during the opening episodes of Andor, the Empire doesn't even have a presence on Andor's planet. Like
No, they didn't.
it's not until midway through the series that and there are people like stormtroopers. We haven't seen them in a generation, kind of thing, and the. And the Empire was perfect, like with the thievery that was going on. Like the rebels were stealing Imperial equipment to build up their own forces, and the Empire was perfectly content at ignoring it, except that someone put together that this was a coordinated effort, and which, by the way, turns the rebels again into bad guys because they are literally stealing from a benign empire in order to build up a military force to oppose it. And the big strip mining scene, Thomas also correctly points out, took place because Andor was a little kid. That was during the Republic. So that wasn't even the Empire that was doing the strip mining.
Was it Andor? Because I've seen scenes on YouTube. I'd like to watch it, but I've seen scenes on YouTube where they have like they bring in all the old Imperials and they have to live in this district as, the rehabilitated or whatever.
It's a prison that you see, yeah. Andor is, but this is after the terrorist attacks.
Right.
So it was an Imperial prison where the prisoners were doing forced labor, and their labor was manufacturing parts for the Death Star that was under construction.
Well, there's a scene, and again, I don't know which one it's from, in the where you have the New Republic, and they're bringing in all these new scientists and stuff who are now using their stuff for good. But you see, the New Republic is like using their technology also for evil. There was
that's not Andor. I think you're thinking of Ahsoka.
No, I watched all of Ahsoka. Or I think I did. It was
or
again. There was
maybe Mandalorian season 3. There was an episode of Mando season 3 where they focused on a couple of former Imperials that were actually plotting to undermine. Well, the girl was plotting to undermine the New Republic, while the dude ended up getting turned into a mental vegetable because he got brain sucked out.
And I haven't watched the entire episode, but I think that goes too far in the opposite direction, where you have the New Republic using brainwashing technology, but she used it to turn him into a vegetable, but they used it to like make him love the New Republic or whatever. That's way too on the opposite side, in my opinion.
I agree.
You can have gray. You can have the New Republic not be the best, and even believe they have to use some Imperial technology in evil ways to continue what the goodness of the New Republic is, but using like just whatever the mind altering, whatever they called it.
The mind flare, I think.
Yeah, they called it something nicer though. When the New Republic uses it, it's not a mind flare. It's a bunny hugging machine.
Bunny hug machine.
Yeah.
So Thomas Potts, he said something there too. They didn't even. Yeah.
It would be like if Alex made a group of anarchists and they rob Fort Knox, and the government comes after, and he uses it as proof government is bad.
The government is bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's making your point.
Yeah. Well, Tom, you have to understand, and this goes before Andor. Thomas has always been an Imperial sympathizer. So just to be clear.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah.
So Thomas is a huge...
All right, Thomas. There, we've got your number.
He thinks he's like, Palpatine's doing some great work there.
Palpatine's the man.
Do it. Do it.
Do it.
I mean, when you look at the ends justifying the means, did he really do anything wrong? I mean,
well, that's the
honestly,
yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Did you see any of the stuff on the recent stuff that's come out about the unmade Underworld series that Lucas wanted to do?
No, was it?
So some story points have been revealed, and honestly, and what kind of got us on this whole Andor discussion is that those Andor beats that make the Empire look good is taken from George Lucas's material, because he actually wanted to make Palpatine a sympathetic character that was actually the good guy until he's betrayed by some horrible woman that is part of the mafia, and and then she leaves him, and because of that, he breaks bad, basically. And it was supposed to take place in between episodes 3 and 4, so the same time frame as Andor.
Yeah, but that makes absolutely no sense because he's
But
obviously bad in the.
I'm not saying it makes perfect sense, but this is what Lucas wanted to do, and he basically said it was going to be like Star Wars meets The Sopranos. He wanted it to be gritty,
Star Wars,
dirty, and sexy.
Sopranos / Game of Thrones /
Yeah.
So it's the Section 31 movie, basically.
Well, yeah. So don't get me started on Section.
But the section, like, here's my thing: the Section 31 movie isn't bad for like a thriller or whatever kind of genre they're trying to do. It just wasn't a Star Trek movie. Is my
It's not even remotely a Star Trek.
Not even remotely.
Yeah. But with the underworld concept, I think the idea of making Palpatine deliberately a sympathetic character, I think, is a big mistake. And I think they just, but they were pitching it. By the way, this is one part of the story that we didn't get to before. I want to get this out before we finish up.
Yeah, go ahead.
They were going to pitch it to they pitched it to HBO, and HBO was very interested in the show, and it was because The Sopranos. To put this in perspective, the Sopranos was in its final season at this time, so this was going to be HBO's next big show. Was going to be this Star Wars show.
Mm-hmm.
So then the guy who was I can't remember exactly what his title was, but he was the one that was negotiating with Lucasfilm, and he was also like in charge of the production of Sopranos and stuff, and he was the guy that was making the deal. So like something like the week before the ink was going to be put on paper, he got arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. And so the deal fell apart there. And then the guy that HBO brought in to replace him was like, no, we're not going to do these big budget shows anymore. And that's why after The Sopranos, HBO didn't have any kind of big flagship show until Game of Thrones. Because the guy that took over
I didn't know.
Yeah, so this guy that took over from the guy that got arrested just wasn't into these big blockbuster shows. And so that's why we didn't get anything good out of HBO for that period of time. But that's where the Star Wars Underworld show would have happened, and as an HBO original. And I mean, for what they're talking about, I guess HBO would be the best way to go. But I still don't think that it helps the Star Wars universe. It's basically like Laura was saying. It's trying to make a Section 31 show on Star Trek. It's trying to make Star Wars something that it isn't. Star Wars isn't supposed to be dark, dirty, and sexy. I'm sorry. I understand. I have no problem with dark, dirty, sexy science fiction, but not Star Wars. Star Wars is its own genre, just like Star Trek is. And that's why I think Section 31 falls on its face. And that's why, at least for me, shows like Andor fall on their face. But Laura, you should watch Andor sometime. I'd love to get your opinion on it.
Do you know who Eckhart's Ladder is?
Yeah. And
he loves it. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He absolutely loved that series. So I was very disappointed in Ahsoka, especially the way they ended it. Man, Ahsoka is my favorite character in Star Wars. I don't think they did very well in that.
I think they definitely could have done better. I think Ahsoka, the problem is that
bad writing.
Well,
bad writing. All of it is bad writing.
They needed better writing throughout, and they also needed someone who knew how to coordinate a lightsaber fight. I mean, that ending action sequence was so loud. It literally looked like Me and Laura Reloaded did it. And by the way, I have footage of what Me and Laura Reloaded looked like sword fighting. It's about that level. So.
Oh my God.
I got a question for you on that.
Yeah.
How did you feel about them making the one chick a Padawan?
Oh, the the Mandalorian.
Right. I don't hate it. A lot of people got upset about it. The only thing it shows to me is that just the Jedi lied. Like anybody can be force sensitive. They just have to try hard enough.
Yeah,
It just makes the Jedi liars. It doesn't break things. It just makes them liars.
I think that well, and it calls into question whether do you really have to be super high midichlorian or M count like they like to say now? Do you really have to have that just to be a Jedi, or is that just a benefit and helps you be a more powerful Jedi? And I think it's the latter because and that's something. Honestly, I didn't like this about the prequels, and they continued it on through now. Is that if you look at the original trilogy, the Force just felt like anybody could be a Jedi if they had the right attitude and they were willing to be disciplined.
Are
And
we all born with a certain amount of midichlorians, and then it just
they don't really explain that, but they do explain it in Star Trek, interestingly enough. They actually do. There's an episode of Star Trek called Plato's Stepchildren. You should watch it. It's from the original series,
okay?
in which the Enterprise crew runs into a group of people that have Force-like powers. In fact, so powerful that a guy having a nightmare nearly destroys the Enterprise by accident with his mind. So that's how powerful these guys are. And as it turns out, they figure out that there's a chemical in the local ecosystem that when you eat it over time and it gets into your bloodstream, it gives you these telekinetic powers. In other words, it's midichlorians. And so they just had a different name for it. And so then
Yeah.
Kirk and Spock inject themselves with it and give themselves the same power, and they actually have a force fight.
So let me ask you this, because this is in Clone Wars too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the some of the episodes that basically just show the Jedi as basically a religion that can tap into this force, but what they say about it and what it isn't necessarily accurate? Because there's like a episode with the Jedi versus the Sisters that they use effectively the Force too. It's just like a green ooze or a green substance that you can see actually move. For me, it doesn't bother me because it just makes it seem like the Jedi have their way of tapping into whatever the power is, and there are other ones, and the Jedi just became the dominant power. Kind of like how some religions will just expand exponentially, and just have explanations like that. Like if you're okay with that, I don't think you will have a big issue with that chick being able to use the Force. But if you don't like that, then I think it ruins it.
No, I kind of, because one thing that I've argued before as far as the Force is concerned is that I don't think, and it's kind of funny enough, kind of like thinking about the real world and like Christians and atheists and stuff, right? Just because you're a Jedi doesn't mean you're good. And just because you're a Sith doesn't mean you're evil. What it means is that Sith learn to access the Force through the power of emotion, while the Jedi learn to access the Force through the power of intellect. And so, and of course, witches and stuff access the Force through the power of incantation. So, and so it is just different ways to access the same thing, and their spiritual beliefs simply guide the methodology. That's kind of how I look at the. What do you think?
No, I don't disagree. That's how I see.
I don't
that's how I
disagree
see
with
it.
that either. That's a pretty good explanation.
Right. So I think that like, so that's one of my problems is that like Sith are just.
I do like the point though my theory also that there is in everyone there is some midichlorians. It's just some people have more than others.
Well, when Qui-Gon tries to explain it, it's that the midichlorians are in all living cells, and they're the reason that we can
part of everything.
Right. And so they're the reason we can communicate with the Force. Just some people have more than others. But it's just like saying, for example, everybody can, assuming you're not genetically deficient or something, everybody can see. But some people have sharper vision than others. Right. So the Jedi, the people that the Jedi and the Sith actively recruit are the people with really good eyes. But that doesn't mean that someone who needs glasses couldn't do the same thing. They just need to work on
Right.
it.
You could have somebody with a lower midichlorian count, but can still be a Jedi.
Right.
They just need to learn how to hone it. It'll be more
And it would be
difficult.
hard. It would be harder
It'll be
for
more
them.
difficult. Yeah.
It'd be like someone who's not naturally athletic trying to be a track star. They could do it, but they'd have to work a lot harder than the kids that are naturally athletic.
Yeah.
You know, so I do think that but that's something that they don't really get into much in Star Wars, because they just they turned it into either you're born with it or you're not. You know. And that's true, Thomas. This is one of the reasons Thomas is so pro-imperial. The Jedi do not recruit; they kidnap.
With that.
And by the way,
They kidnap.
the worst. No, because here's the worst thing about it. So number one, when little Annie Skywalker was brought before the council, they said he was too old, which means that their normal procedure is to kidnap kids younger than Anakin Skywalker was. But it gets worse than that, because to confirm what Thomas is saying, remember in episode 1, Qui-Gon, Padme, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Jar Jar, and Shmi are all sitting around the table having a meal together, right? And or no, this is after the pod race. So, but Shmi is like, so is he to become a Jedi then? He's like, yep. There was no question. He's coming with me. It wasn't skip a beat. It wasn't like, is it okay with you if your son leaves you forever and comes with me on my spaceship?
We're gonna take your kid.
Yeah. So it was absolutely
I mean, in the various series, they come after them when they're just like children. You literally see them take babies away. Like that happened with Ahsoka. You see Ahsoka is all of like 6
and that Ahsoka
months.
anime.
In the Clone Wars.
Oh, I thought you were talking about there's. I thought it was in the anime, the Tales of the Jedi or whatever, that they showed her as an infant.
I mean, I'm sure they do it there too, but they see like multiple episodes. They literally just take a child, and the populace is just so brainwashed that if a Jedi shows up and says, "Hey, your child is force sensitive, we're going to take them," they just accept it. Like a child gets abducted because a dude shows up, one of the bounty hunters shows up and says, "Hey, he's going to be a Jedi," and they're like, "All right, well, here you go. I guess that's really all we need to know." Like
Stan wants to know in which trimester.
What trimester? Can you detect force sensitivity in babies? That's hilarious.
That's what. Yeah, I heard somebody joke about that, because I think it was actually Red Letter Media when they were talking about the prequels, and they were like, "Wait a minute, if Anakin is too old, how young do you have to be? Do they need to be fetuses?"
Right?
You know?
I remember that there was a comment like that. Yeah. Last week.
What's funny is, it's just just like any writer who doesn't think about the logical conclusions to what they're putting on the scene. But there's like holocrons that have children where they keep a list where they're going to show up at a certain time. They're like active. They're like Santa Claus that abducts people. They actively
that's their Krampus.
Right. Exactly.
The Jedi just show up and it's like, we're going to take your kids. But Lord, I got to ask you this since you're here. Because people have been demanding it, and they really want to know, when are you going to make more naked dancing videos for them?
I mean, that's more my own